Hello everyone, my name is Lumi, and today, we are going to be ranking every single Bachelor heart event in Stardew Valley, from their very first one all the way to marriage. My ranking shorts and TikToks have become quite infamous, to say the least. I'm known to be a little bit biased, but for this list, I'm putting my English degree to use, and we will be analyzing every aspect of each story. Intro, body paragraphs, conclusion, with a slightly unbiased lens. I'm not gonna promise anything. What we are looking for while ranking is a cohesive and engaging story, one that is consistent throughout the heart events and doesn't randomly drop off in the middle. If you like the sound of that, take a pit stop and subscribe, and we'll get right into it. Starting with Alex's 2 heart event. If you head to the beach in the summer, Alex will be there doing his thing, throwing that damn grid ball. He throws it to you, and for whatever reason, you miss. Could not be me. He then goes on to tell you about his dreams and aspirations of going pro. It's a pretty simple and short heart event, but it kind of sets the scene for the rest of Alex's story. We learn his ultimate goal in life, and that's about all you gotta know at this point. We know that he's a sporty, fun dude that has big goals and big aspirations. And while this start isn't necessarily riddled with content that is worth the analysis, it is still cute, I guess. Except me personally, I'm catching that damn grid ball. And also, if we're thinking realistically about the in-game universe at this point, we've spent an entire season fishing, farming, mining, so by the time that summer rolls around, we had to have at least gained some coordination or muscle or something. Your farmer should catch a grid ball. But whatever. Since, like I said, this is just the start, it's not the most in-depth heart event in the world. So Alex's 2 heart event can get a B tier. Not too high, not too low, just right there in the middle. In Alex's 4 heart event, you creepily observe as he talks to his dog Dusty in the town. He mentions how much the two have been through throughout their life. You, of course, nosy as hell, jump out from behind the saloon to approach him, where he then tells you about his life before the two of you met. His father was extremely hard on him and very, very abusive. Eventually, his dad left, and then his mother sadly passed away, leaving him to live with his grandparents, George and Evelyn. This is a really vulnerable moment for Alex, giving you insight about why he might be the way he is. He shares these big giant goals with you in his 2 heart event, and here you kind of learn where that all stems from. Having really big dreams just because you're an ambitious person is one thing, but it seems like Alex is thinking big in order to live up to a particular standard set by his dad. When you're told by a person that is supposed to provide you with utmost love that you're worthless, you might then spend your entire life trying to push yourself to overachieve, either truly believing those words or having some sort of subconscious feeling. Sort of like it's a learned behavior to just push and push yourself to do something, even if it's something that you don't want to do with your life. I love this heart event, and I really love that Alex shares something with you from the past, because he does seem like a very emotionally guarded person. I mean, that's evident in the way that he immediately segues to the dog after telling you that entire story. He doesn't want to dwell, he doesn't want to have to process anything. However, with that being said, I do have a small critique. I think that this event could come a little bit later in Alex's story. It would improve the overall story and its pacing tremendously, but we will talk more about that in a little bit. Regardless, I still think that this is an A tier heart event. The timing unfortunately docks it down from S tier, but we will get to that, I promise. Next, I'm going to talk about both the 5 and 6 heart events because they are honestly really similar, at least in the message it's trying to portray. At 5 hearts, you'll find Alex staring longingly into the bookshelves in his room. He confesses that he's never read a singular book in it and is kind of just like, how the hell am I gonna do anything with my life if I'm stupid? And it's important to note that he does use the word worthless when describing how he feels about himself. Then in his 6 heart event, you'll find him working out in his room. He's doubting himself, saying that he might not be able to fulfill his dream of going pro, and apologizing to you for his previous behavior. These events reinforce the idea that Alex is super hard on himself. It also further shows that all of it stems from how his father treated him when he was growing up, and also the early passing of his mother. The word worthless from his 5 heart event, like I said, is very notable because that is exactly what his father called him. There's clearly some sort of internal struggle going on. He wants to have a good life, work hard, be educated, but the words from his father still kind of stay in the back of his mind, holding him back from reaching his potential. I honestly think that these two can combine to form one single heart event. It isn't extremely necessary to have these two function separately, at least for story purposes. And right back to what I was saying before, I think both of them can go before the 4th heart event. If they were placed prior, we'd firstly see Alex's struggles, how he can't help but be self-deprecating, how he feels like he can't make his dreams come true. And after that, play the fourth heart event, where you can then reveal that these tendencies come from his parents. I also think it makes more sense for his personality. Initially, he's hesitant to open up, so he only shares just a little bit. Then once he becomes comfortable with you, he then shares the truth. I'd be more inclined to rank these events higher than I'm going to if they were 1, combined, 2, came before the fourth heart event, and 3, had a little bit more content in them. The 5 heart event gets a C tier, and the 6 heart event gets a B tier, because he has his shirt off. Moving swiftly along to the 8 heart event, and this one has to be my favorite of Alex's. You'll have to visit the beach when Alex is there again, and you'll find him crying. He tells you that that particular day marks 12 years since his mother passed. He regrets never thanking her for raising him, and plays this little music box. You two listen silently, and see a flashback of little baby Alex and his mom, and Alex asks you not to tell anyone he was crying. I like this one for a number of reasons, and firstly, it's just so goddamn cute. I love that he cherishes this last keepsake that he has of his mother's, and that he shares it with you, making it a beautiful moment. I love that he's crying, clearly feeling a rush of emotions, and in perfect Alex fashion is like, don't tell anybody. It shows that he's become comfortable with you, but still hasn't lost that little frat boy charm that everybody loves him for. And come on, the flashback? I might have cried the first time that I saw it. But when you're prompted with a dialogue option, if you choose the one that is about honoring his mother's memory, he'll tell you that he agrees, and that's the reason why he's working so hard to go pro, which opens up a small can of worms in my opinion, because firstly, you could say that he's finally realized not to do things just to prove himself to his dad, but rather do them to honor his mother, the person who loved and cared for him unconditionally. And that is such a beautiful ending to the friendship route. The issue occurs when you married the dude. But we'll get to that. Regardless, I don't think that impacts the effect of this heart event because it is just so damn good. Alex gets his first S tier. For Alex's 10 heart event, he'll send you a letter inviting you to the saloon. It's basically just a little date. Gus plays the violin, Emily brings you food, you two get to chatting, and then Alex confesses his love for you. Since I play as the female farmer, I will not be talking about how nice this heart event and much of Alex's dialogue is for the male farmer. I know the gays have it good, okay? But because I experience the story differently, I will only be rating based on my experience. Anyway, this is just another cute little heart event. Nothing crazy story or lore-wise, and personally, a little bit boring, but I just honestly don't have much to say about it. Maybe I'd feel just a little bit different if I was an Alex stan, but it's cute. I'll give it a B tier and move on. The 14 heart event. Your lovely husband will ask for 5 bags for some secret project he's working on. The secret project being a TV, a couple of chairs, a flag in the back of the saloon, just for all the boys to watch gridball. He says that even though he will not be going pro, this is his one little way of still holding on to that dream, by watching it in the back of a bar. Now, I will point out that I have seen a lot of good takes on this heart event, but I'm not sure how much I really agree. People say that this is both a way for him to hold on to the love of the game and also hang out with his grandpa, the father figure that stepped in when he needed him the most, which I think would be very sweet, and I love that this is a way for him to hang out with our old pal George. Why'd I say pal like that? Old pal George. However, I always say, why the hell do I have to drop 5,000 gold for this? I've got a whole ass furniture catalog with infinite furniture for him to use. That is mostly a joke just because I find it funny, but that's the reason I always put shame upon this heart event. But there is some valid reasoning that I think hurts his story quite a lot. There's an issue across the board with when you get married, your spouse is losing their spark, not participating in their hobby anymore, or not gunning for their dreams. So this really isn't exclusive to Alex, but I still want to talk about it. Why does he give up his dreams for marriage? Can he have both love and goals and passion? He says that he wants to work hard to go pro for his mom, but instead becomes a stay-at-home husband. It'd be different if he tried out for the team and didn't make it, but he just straight up didn't attempt it at all. And because this issue is kind of common across everybody, I'm gonna present an alternative that I like much better, but it's gonna require us to ignore the dialogue option that is presented in the 8 heart event. Maybe his dreams of becoming a pro gridball player is another result of his abusive father. Alex might have chosen to go down that path because of the pressures he felt. There are so many instances where parents will just push sports upon their kids to the point where they can no longer enjoy it anymore. In reality, going pro may not have been something Alex Alex wanted for his future, but instead his father wanted it for him. Giving up on it could be his way of reclaiming his life, liberating himself from his father's grasp. I think the actual answer is that marriage makes him give up on his dreams, but as I said, it's just a universal issue, so I'm not sure how fair it is to consider it within the rankings. Either way, I'm just not too much of a fan of this heart event, so it's gonna have to be a C tier. Let's move on to Mr. Elliot, shall we? Starting with his 2 heart event, we head over to Elliot's beach cabin and have a conversation with him. He tells you that the reason he came to Pelican Town was to fulfill his dreams of becoming an author. The people in his hometown didn't really believe in him, so he came here to have a fresh start. He'll then ask you what kind of novels you like, and your choice here actually ends up mattering in the future. Similar to Alex, this first heart event is nothing too crazy. Just a little, hey, I exist. This is my whole shtick, blah 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 blah. We're setting up the story here, and it's obviously about his path to becoming an author. I like that you get to influence the outcome right at the gate, but because it doesn't pay off until the very end, I don't think it's fair for me to consider it in the rankings. Once again, a B tier 2 heart event. Next, the 4 heart event. We're chilling at the saloon, waiting for Gus to take our order, when Elliot stumbles in, telling you that he came to grab a drink after a long day of writing. He even orders you a drink, and you have a little toast. Elliot doing a dance as the screen fades to black. That's pretty much it. This is one of those fun events without much narrative significance. You could say it's just to further show how hard he is working on his novel, because that's why he's taking a break in the first place, but I still think this is mostly just for fun. It shows more of his personality, the romantic and the silly side of him. He buys your drink, talks about how much of a pleasure it is to see you. Bro's just like, you come here often? Like, no, Elliot, ew. Not my cup of tea, but it's cute and fun. The 2 and 4 heart events have a similar simplicity to them, but I think the 4 heart event is a little bit stronger. I wish there was a tier between A and B because I would just put it right there, but I'll just keep it at the top of B, maybe low A if he's lucky. The 6 heart event is where I personally start to get a little annoyed. You enter Elliot's cabin as he's playing the piano. Once he's done, he starts talking about how hard it's been working on his novel. It's always about the novel. Wah, it's so hard. Wah, I have to finish my novel. Wah. And that's not to say that everyone's gotta have some tragedy in their life to make for an interesting story. I just personally would like a little bit more depth to this novel situation. Whether he speaks more about the people from his hometown, or maybe talking more about the writing process. He might be struggling with a particular character, or a plotline, or something. This far into the heart events, I just want a little bit more, other than just, I'm just working on my book. However, something that I want to point out is, I feel like certain heart events between the bachelors and bachelorettes are more inclined to romance. What I mean by that is, I feel like some of them seem to be written more as like a romance route. I don't really know how to explain it well, but I just feel like Elliot's fits under this category. The full intent of the story is to end with some magnificent romance between the 2 of you. So the novel might not be the most important part, but rather it's the relationship. It explains the simple cute 4 heart event, the 8 heart event, and by proxy, the 2 heart event. If that doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. Anyway, I like that he's playing the piano. That's fun. I think because of my own personal wishes with the story, I'll give this heart event a C tier. Elliot's 8 heart event is definitely one of the better ones, and not because he finally finished his novel. Okay, maybe it is because he finished his novel, but it's also just because I enjoy it, okay? So, Elliot sends a letter inviting you to his book reading. You head over to the museum, and Elliot reads his novel of the genre that you chose in your 2 heart event. And after it's over, he'll tell you that he dedicated the whole book to you, since it was firstly based on your favorite genre. There's many things to say about this heart event, but I want to firstly say that it supports my romance route theory, I guess. Every single heart event prior of him talking about this novel leads up into this 8 heart event. It's sweet, romantic, cute, all of that sappy shit, and it perfectly rounds out this never-ending novel story. I know I'm a little dramatic, the I need to write thing really isn't that bad, but regardless, the end result is cute and it does add meaning to Elliot's efforts. The 8 heart event can get an S tier. And it's time for the infamous 10 heart event. And before we get into why it's infamous, let me just tell you about what goes on. You meet Elliot at the docks, and he takes you on a boat ride. He thanks you for the help with his novel, and just jumps your bones, giving you a little smooch. I've explained in the past that some people find this event to be a little creepy. They say the kiss comes out of nowhere, but like, you're already dating him in the 10 heart event. My only thing is, bro jumps at you. and your farmer literally starts shaking. It's just kind of funny, the way that he just surprise attacks you. Like, bro really wanted that kiss. I don't really understand these criticisms, but I definitely do joke about this heart event a lot, purely because of the way that he kisses you. But at the end of the day, I don't actually think he's a creep. If my boyfriend kissed me out of the blue, I'd be more than okay with it. It's actually a really cute event. It fits the drama and the romance that Elliot is known for, and really is not creepy. Although it's not my favorite of all the 10 heart events. If you haven't been able to tell, I'm not the most romantic, cheesy person in the world, but it's still pretty good. So I'll give it an A tier. On to the final of Elliot's bunch, the 14 heart event. Elliot goes on tour for his book signing, so he leaves home for a few days. During this time, he'll send letters about how everything's going, how much he loves and misses you, and even leaves crab cakes in the fridge for you, which, ew. But it's the thought that counts, I guess. I'm gonna say something that I've said about every Elliot heart event, but it's cute. Not my cup of tea, but it's cute. I do actually wish it was like an in-person event. Maybe it's because I don't necessarily care for the letters, but I do wish it was a little bit different. Maybe the letters still exist, but one day we go to visit the book signing. We go to Zuzu City and other heart events, so who's to say that we can't go surprise him in Zuzu City? I feel like it would just add something that's missing in that heart event, and to make it a little bit more personal between the two of you, instead of it being one-sided Elliot love dumping into your mailbox. For all the romance girlies, I'm sure you're like obsessed with it. But for me, it's a B tier. Let's move on to our resident nerd, Harvey. Now, Harvey is kind of unique because I don't think he has a concrete storyline necessarily. We kind of just like hop into events during his daily routine, but I'll say it again, we'll get to that. In Harvey's 2-heart event, we intrude on George's home checkup. Harvey tells George that he has to do some things differently if he wants to stay healthy, but Mr. Grumpy is just like, nuh-uh. George will then ask you for your opinion on the matter, and if you agree with Harvey, he'll thank you for supporting him. I feel like this isn't so much Harvey's event, but it's George's. Think about Haley's 2-heart event, where Emily's like, do your chores. We have the choice to back Emily up or agree with Haley. But that's not Emily's heart event. That's Haley's. And it makes more sense that it's Haley's because she's resistant and she needs to learn how to pull her own weight, in the same way that George needs to learn how to take care of himself. I suppose it's more about supporting Harvey and showing you that you trust in his expertise, but I still think this is George's heart event. I'm gonna have to give it a C tier. In Harvey's 4-heart event, you head to the clinic for your yearly checkup. He tells you your pulse is high, you're still healthy, but you shouldn't overwork yourself on the farm. And that's it. This should be the 2-heart event. It follows all the key features of the other 2-heart events. It's short and simple, introduces something about the character, whether it be their goals or their hobbies or just something that's important. In Harvey's case, he's a doctor and he takes care of everybody in the town. Maybe to make it a little bit better, the progression should go as follows. The 4-heart event becomes the 2 and then vice versa. You firstly learn that Harvey does all of the annual checkups and it's important to look after yourself. Then you play the George event exactly how it is. But at the end, Harvey then tells you about the burden it is having everybody rely on you. How sometimes he'll doubt his abilities, or maybe he's so hyper-focused on everybody else that he forgets to take care of himself. You'll reassure him and blah 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 blah, it goes from there. From a story standpoint, something like this would give the first 2-heart events something to stand on. And this is another circumstance where I wish I had an in-between tier, but I'm gonna put the 4-heart event at a high C tier. Now, onto the 6-heart event. You head into Pierre's shop and walk into Caroline's aerobics class with all of the MILFs of the valley and Harvey. When you bump into him, he gets all embarrassed and tells you that he joins the class just to stay healthy. He'll then ask you not to tell anyone that he takes the aerobics class because he's embarrassed. Which, first of all, if any of you have ever taken a Zumba class, an aerobics class, you know that they are so much fun. If you don't know, I grew up dancing, and sometimes in place of one of my ballet classes throughout the week, we'd just do Zumba and we would have a blast. So Harvey, don't be ashamed. Anyway, this is kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, how Harvey's heart events don't feel like one cohesive story, but rather just like little instances throughout his week. Like, we intrude on a home checkup, we visit the clinic, and now we're in an aerobics class. There's nothing that really connects these events, especially if we're reading between the lines. The only common denominator is that health factor, but it's not really a deep plot point, nor does it reveal anything new about Harvey. I, however, still like Harvey's 6-heart event. It can get a high B tier. Onto the 8-heart event, where we finally get to learn more about Harvey, not just that he's a damn doctor. You head up to Harvey's room, and he's talking to some pilot dude on the radio. window. Once he notices you, he tells you to come on over to watch the plane fly over you. Then he'll tell you that he's always dreamed of becoming a pilot, but couldn't do it because of his own fears and anxieties. He recognizes reality, that sometimes people just can't make their dreams come true. Then he'll just segue to showing you his model planes. This event, which is actually one of the better ones, is quite depressing. I know Harvey's content with his life, and even asks you not to pity him for these lost dreams. But in this moment, the draining and depressing reality of life is just thrown at us. Some of us don't get to have a life of excitement and comfort without giving up what we really want to do. We'll still find ways to savor this love, like how Harvey contacts the pilots and collects these model planes. And in some ways, you can say that this is what Harvey's story is really about. He's stuck in a loop within the medical field, living real life. But I don't like that because it's sad. So we find out more about Harvey's interests. He likes planes. Yay. A tier. Moving on. Harvey's 10 heart event, unironically, might be one of my favorite ones. Harvey will send you a letter inviting you to meet him at the railroad. When you meet him there, he'll tell you that he has a surprise. Mr. Hot Air Balloon Marcello flies on down. You two go on a romantic hot air balloon ride, Harvey avoiding crashing out for 2 whole seconds so he can give you a smooch. I like this one for many reasons, but firstly because how out of his comfort zone this is, and especially because of the progression from his 8 to 10 heart events. He'll tell you in the 8 heart event that he didn't achieve his dreams of becoming a pilot because of his height anxiety. No, he's not a short king, he just does not like heights. I said that really weird. Or maybe he is, I have no idea. But here he is, on a hot air balloon ride. If you ask him about his fear of heights and why he's deciding to do this, he'll essentially say, it's for you. He's facing his fears for you, even though bro is freaking out. I find it really endearing that he gets to be so adventurous for you and gets to experience the thrill of flying in the air. I'll also point out that this is a pretty unique event. I mean, like, nobody even comes close doing anything like a hot air balloon ride. So props to Harvey for that one. For that, Harvey receives his first S tier. And to conclude, Harvey's 14 heart event. You come home to Harvey chefing it up in the kitchen, making you pasta and clams, which, yum. You then just have dinner, chat about your day, and Harvey even offers to wash the dishes. It's simple and sweet, and kind of reflects the very loose story we have going on in Harvey's heart events. He didn't gun for his dreams, and opted for simplicity and comfortability. And he's content with that. The two of you lead a simple little life. You go to work, you come home, you have dinner, and enjoy each other's company. It's cute, but I don't really have much to say other than that. Harvey's final event can get an A tier. Coming up next, we've got my man Sam. Beginning with his 2 heart event, you'll head over to his house to find him and Sebastian jamming in his room. Similar to Elliot's 2 heart event, he'll ask you for some advice on what music his band should play, which your choice will affect the future. And also at this point, you guys know the vibe with the 2 heart event. They're simple and act as a beginning introduction to the character and sometimes the story. It is cool that you get to choose the band vibes, but like Elliot's, I can't consider that in this ranking because it doesn't pay off until later. B tier, just like the other ones. Sam actually has a 3 heart event. You'll head to the beach on a sunny day, finding Vincent and Sam playing in the sand. Vincent asks Sam about their father Kent, curious if he'll be coming home anytime soon and if he'll truly be okay. Sam reassures him that he'll come home and not to worry about all of the military rumors. However, he tells you that he regrets giving his brother a false sense of hope, since in reality, he truly doesn't know what will happen. You'll get an option to choose either Vincent deserves to know the truth or that he did the right thing and kids should still hold on to hope whenever they can. I personally think that Sam did the right thing and that he's a really good brother. He doesn't want to give Vincent any emotional turmoil, all while being so young. But he also doesn't want to lie to him, and I feel like that's still an important feeling to have. This event shows that despite being in his late teens and early 20s, he's still figuring things out, but would like to give his best effort to do the right thing. I really like this heart event because it shows the love and compassion that Sam has for his brother, but it's also really relatable to me at my current point in life. I'm 23, and as a kid, I thought that I would have everything figured out by now. But the truth is, I don't. And I really shouldn't have to. I'm still learning and growing and navigating life through the lens that I'm just trying to do the right thing. This might be a little bit biased. I just really like the message that this event gives. Sam, so early on, gets his first S tier. Now, starting at the 4 heart event, and I'm gonna say literally all the way up until the 14 heart event, The message, the theme from the 3 heart event is just lost. Instead of a young adult living in his adolescence and finding ways to ascend to adulthood, we just get a pesky little teenager. We find Sam in his house, grabbing a little snack from the fridge. He's got slippery hands because bro drops a whole egg on the floor. Also, before I continue, why is he snacking on a raw egg? Anyway, Mama Jody hears the splat and comes right over, clearly upset at the mess that was made. You then have to lie and blame yourself for slippy fingers in order to get any friendship points. The other options, the truth and a bad lie, both make you lose points. It is funny. Like, I really love this clip of Sam jumping and the eggs splatting on the floor. I use it all the damn time. But if we actually think about what's happening here, it is just straight up childish. Sam doesn't want to get in trouble with mommy, so he prefers if you take the fall. Of course, Jody wouldn't get mad at you, but she might get mad at Sam. If you speak to Sam after this heart event, he does apologize, so he knows that it's wrong. I'm probably around Sam's age, maybe a little bit older, and if I dropped an egg out from the fridge, my mom would just call me an egg, and then I'd clean it up. But that's about it. I wouldn't blame someone else for it. So if we're thinking narratively, Sam just goes backwards here. I don't know, maybe it's just supposed to be silly, which is why I like it in that sense, but I start to hate it the more I need to use my brain. But I'll give you a C tier. Let's just go next. His 6 heart event. Head to the town on a sunny day, and you'll find Sam riding his skateboard. Sam will then crash into Mayor Lewis and gets yelled at. Lewis will ask you what you think, and you get 3 dialogue options. You can agree with Lewis, back up Sam, or just straight up stay out of it. None of these give or take any points away, so you're safe to do whatever you please. But my personal choice is to stay out of it, especially because of the dialogue that you get after. Sam will apologize to Lewis, but once he's gone, Sam will straight up turn to you and be like, "You see my trick? Ew." I'm sorry. I personally really do like this event, especially because of that last dialogue choice. It truly shows Sam's himbo charm, that bro just wants to skate and impress you. But it doesn't really do much for his progression. Bro's still a wild dude and is not maturing in the slightest. It follows the same attitude that he has in the egg event. But this one doesn't piss me off nearly as much because he does own up to his behavior here. I guess he can't really blame it on me, but like, he still owns up to it. I'm still fond of it because I do like that skateboarder rocker dude shtick he's got going on, but I have to point out that he does not mature in the slightest. Regardless, since his personality does shine here, it is a low A tier. Next up, we have the 8 heart event. In the morning, Sam will come to your doorstep and invite you to the show his band is playing later on that night in Zuzu City. Of course, they play the genre of music that you picked out in the 2 heart event, in which Sam attributes it all to you. This heart event is really cool, and I share the same sentiment that I do with Elliot's 8 heart event. It's very sweet that Sam takes your words to heart and writes the music based on what you say in the 2 heart event. On top of that, he recognizes that it's all thanks to you. I do love being a muse. I also think that it's super cool that Concerned Ape made music for all of the genre options, so that's just definitely worth noting. This is just a great heart event. It's very cute for the relationship between you and Sam, and shows that he's fulfilling a dream of his. Another S tier for our himbo. It's time to rage more, because now I have to talk about Sam's 10 heart event. Sam will send you a letter to come to his house after dark. Basically, you sneak through his window, his bedroom window, and he confesses his feelings for you. But Mama Jody hears and bangs on the door, which you then have to hide in his bed to avoid her. Once she leaves, you have the option to stay put in his bed, and if you do, he gives you a little smooch and you guys cuddle until the next day, I guess. I used to love this heart event. I've played Stardew for quite some time, so that boyish charm really did its magic on my little teenage brain. But now, maybe I'm auntie, because why am I sneaking through a man's window and hiding from his mother? I get why someone might love the thrill of this event, because I myself used to be that someone. But now I could not imagine playing hide and seek with a dude's mother. No thank you. Personally, this would score low on the tier list. However, I do have to admit that it does fit his story quite well. It's like a teen romance movie. Like Sam would throw pebbles at my window with a boombox playing above his head. So I get it. it makes sense, and it does match that rebellious behavior that surrounds Sam. Based on his character and what his story suggests, this would be an A tier event, but my personal bias is strong enough to bump it down to a high B tier. Moving on to our final Sam event, number 14. Sam recognizes that he's basically done nothing since you guys moved in together. Already a fantastic start. Later on, he'll get a letter in the mail, which is an offer for a job writing kids' music for the Happy Junimo show. He's hesitant at first because, you know, initially he thought he'd be a rock star. However, he does end up caving and taking the job, firstly showing you a little sneak peek, and then getting to share the final product with you, Vincent, and Jazz, which of course they love it. He's extremely happy with the result, and thanks you for urging to go with this opportunity. This is a fantastic redemption in my opinion. Remember when I said the childishness persists all the way up until this event? Well, Sam is able to push past his ego here and jump at this opportunity. Of course, an aspiring rock star would have some misgivings about writing children's music, but that's just inevitable. But he does it because he is able to recognize that it's a great opportunity, and he even ends up enjoying it. Ironic that childishness disappears in an event about children's music, but it really does. I also love it because it's another instance of a dateable still pursuing their dreams and passions even after marriage. For his 14 heart event, Sam gets an S tier. Next, we'll be talking about all of your guys' favorite little emo boy, Sebastian. In his 2 heart event, we head into Seb's room and we find him working on the computer. After he finishes up what he's doing, he tells you that he does freelance programming work, and right after, gets a notification from Sam asking to hang out, but Seb does not seem too keen on the idea. Robin then enters his room and says that Abigail was looking for him. Robin does tell her that he's working, but Abigail insists on stopping by either way. Seb gets a little frustrated that nobody seems to take his job seriously and just tells you a little bit more about himself. He oftentimes needs time alone just to decompress. This might be one of the most content-packed 2 heart event, at the very least out of the Bachelors. We learn a lot about Sebastian here, from his career to his typical behaviors to his anxieties, and I think this is a really fantastic start, setting up his story swimmingly. It's clear that a lot of love went into writing Sebastian's story, and many people theorize that Concerned Ape himself wrote Sebastian based on him, so it makes sense that he would have a pretty strong start. I said that you know at this point how the 2 heart events go, but I think this is a really elevated version of the introductions that we get from the other 2 heart events. So I'm gonna skip the 2 heart tier and throw it into A tier. For his 4 heart event, you'll find Sebastian outside working on his motorcycle. He'll explain that it is indeed his, and he likes to go on rides far, far away from the valley. Now, this amount of depth is what I would expect from a 2 heart event, so I almost wish that this was the 2 heart event and vice versa. However, I feel like the 2 heart event is supposed to introduce the most important character trait and the theme that's gonna keep on going throughout the story, which his current 2 heart event does perfectly. So I guess I'd say that the 4 heart event is just to showcase another one of his hobbies, and it does foreshadow the character depth that's to come in the future. He notes that he uses the bike to get far away from the valley, which we learn is important later. And I have to say, I love a good foreshadow, and it's done really well in this instance. In all of my rating videos, I tend to glaze Sebastian's story, but it's just really hard to not do so. You gotta admit that a lot of thought was put into it. On top of that, he has this sense of relatability to this specific fan base that goes unmatched throughout all of the characters. He's not my favorite Bachelor, but I can't lie and say his story is not one of the best. For the foreshadowing alone, this one's a low A tier. Sebastian's 6 heart event is just another banger. You'll find Seb and Sam in his room, and they invite you to play the Solarian Chronicles, which is basically just D&D. There are a ton of different scenarios that you can experience, so you can have a unique playthrough multiple times, and that's just really cool. It doesn't really delve into Sebastian's story too much. It feels like just another aspect of Sebastian's interests, and just to give the player something fun to do. Regardless of how cool this heart event is, this is still a tier list based on the character storylines. So I can't give him an S tier based on the criteria I've been following, but I guess I can get away with an A tier. On to the 8 heart event, which isn't as spectacular as the other ones. On a rainy day, you'll find Sebastian at the beach. He'll tell you more about his anxiety, but says that he doesn't really feel that way around you. He'll then tell you to come stand under the umbrella with him, and you two just chill in silence. I say it's not as spectacular, but I think rightfully so. ConcernedApe put so much work into the 6th heart event, so it makes sense that this one is relatively simple. But that doesn't mean that it's not at least a little bit meaningful to your relationship with Sebastian. He's clearly taken a liking to you, almost like hanging with you gives him the same feeling that solitude does. It's cute, it's sweet, and it can get a high B tier. Onto his 10 heart event, where Sebastian fulfills that promise of the motorcycle ride. He'll take you to a cliff overlooking the Zuzu City skyline. He is like, I don't take girls here, which cringe, but I get the appeal and the story implications, whatever. He'll also tell you that the city used to intrigue him greatly. He wanted to move to the city and get far, far away from his hometown. The foreshadowing from the 4 heart event pays off here, by the way. However, now he's inclined to stay in the valley, having a newfound love for it, seemingly because of you. Then he admits his love to you and gives you a little smooch. This event is very, very nice and very, very sweet. On top of that, it shows you the progression he's made. He's more open to you, and you helped him reignite his love for the valley and push away his tendencies to run away from the people in his life. And that truly is the point of his story. Before you, he'd been seeking a way out, but he slowly realizes through your influence that there are good things in his life, and it's not necessary to run away from them. The post-marriage dialogue kind of ruins this, but that's just another can of worms that I promised myself I wouldn't get into with any of them. Also, I hate the I don't take girls here because it low-key triggers my flight or fight response, but I'm gonna ignore it. For his 10 heart event, Sebastian gets an S tier. Onto the last of Sebastian's bunch, the 14 heart event. You meet Seb in the mountains, and he urges you to come quick because he found an injured frog in a bush. The two of you rescue it, and Seb takes it home to nurse it back to health. The next day, he makes a little froggy tank for it because it wouldn't be able to survive in the wild. You can suggest to him that he makes an entire frog sanctuary in there, which makes him very excited and says that he might even start breeding frogs. I think I've given this heart event an S tier in the past because frogs? Who the hell doesn't love baby frogs? But narratively, there is much to consider. It's cool that Seb picks up a new hobby through this all, which is something that not a lot of the bachelors do throughout their marriage. And the bachelorettes, none of them do anything. But I do wish there was just a little bit more to it. For instance, Sam's 14 heart event is similar in the way that he does something new for himself, but you're able to encourage him, and he gives you a little boombox so you can play the song he wrote whenever you want. You can encourage Sebastian, but it doesn't really amount to anything. I wish there was another scene after you encourage him to make a frog sanctuary, where he comes home with more frogs, or the two of you try to breed them together, or just like something. A tiny little extra element would push this into S tier, but I'm gonna leave it at A tier. Onto our final bachelor, Mr. Joja. In Shane's 2 heart event, you'll find him in the woods, drinking a beer on the dock. He'll tell you about his life, how he feels like he can't really get out of this rut that he's in. The drinking, the depression. He just feels like he's not strong enough. And he shares his hopes that you'll have a good life, but doesn't share that same feeling for himself. This is a really great start for Shane's story, because we learn a lot about how he feels about himself, and it sets the scene for some progression down the line. He is deeply rooted in self-deprecation, falling into darkness and not even attempting to crawl his way out. Now, unlike Sebastian's, this 2 heart event does closely follow the format of the ones prior. It's short and to the point, but like Sebastian's, it clearly presents the theme across the rest of his story in an interesting and insightful way, able to engage us in his story and also get a feel for Shane's mental state. Because of this, definitely another A tier 2 heart event. In Shane's 4 heart event, you'll enter Marnie's ranch, finding Shane passed out in his room. You use your watering can to wake him up, and Marnie asks what his plan is going forward, but he tells her that he probably won't be around long enough to find out. However, Jazz hears all of this and runs away crying, which makes Shane crash to the ground in tears. Super heavy heart event, but it's very well done. In the 2 heart event, we learn Shane's struggles, but he's still there standing. Then, we get to witness the beginning of the crash, starting all the way from the 4 heart event. Now it's to the point where he's starting to affect the people around him. At first, he doesn't really seem to care. So far gone that he doesn't really feel anything. It isn't until he knows Jazz heard everything that he starts to break down. Shane knows that he's going down the wrong path. He knows that he's hurting everybody around him. But that's the thing with depression. You feel the anguish of hurting the people that you love, but just can't seem to do anything to help yourself out of it. This is another very well done heart event, and I do think the added element of Shane hurting his family strengthens it. Obviously not because he hurts them, but because it just shows reality. It's just what happens to the best of us, and is a perfect representation of alcoholism and a deteriorating mental state. I have to give it an S tier. In his 6 heart event, you'll find Shane in the woods as it's raining, surrounded by empty cans. This is the lowest point for him, since he asks you why he shouldn't just end it right then and there. You'll take him to Harvey's to get him treated, where Harvey says that he'll refer him to a counselor once he wakes up. The next day, Shane shows up at your doorstep and tells you that he's gonna seek counseling, and also apologizes for the state that you found him in. As I've said, this is the low. This is the moment that he realized he is capable of getting better. He just needs to seek out the help for it. This event is really sad, but the conclusion does provide the player with some hope. I feel pretty much the same about both the 4 and 6 heart events. They're both really good representations of how sometimes people really struggle to break through their issues. I also think that the 4 and 6 heart events are intertwined, in the way that any good story should be, and this is another S tier. Shane, unlike the rest of them, has a 7 heart event that's split into 2 parts. I'll speak about both of them together, because although they are really different content-wise, they're both trying to show the same thing. In the first part, if you enter Marnie's home, you'll find Marnie, Jazz, and Shane inside. Shane tells Marnie how much better he's feeling, and that instead of drinking beer, he's been drinking sparkling water. He realized that he does have people in his life that he can lean on, and that it can help him turn over a new leaf. He even gives Jazz a new pair of shoes. It's adorable. In the second part, Shane's filming a JoJo commercial for a contest with Emily and Clint. He'll ask you to be an extra in it, and that's basically the gist. Both of these, one explicitly and one a little bit more obscurely, shows the progress that Shane's made since that moment on the cliff. He's been getting help and learning that he doesn't have to be alone in this world. I do, however, wish there was a bit of a smoother transition between pre and post-help Shane. Not easy to go from the place he was in at the 6 heart event to the place he's in at the very next heart. There could be an inkling of hardship, I suppose, and I know that it's definitely not easy for him. So I would just love to hear more about how he's feeling during this really extreme lifestyle change. Because of the very quick turnaround without much insight into what this experience has been like for him, it takes these events down a couple of notches, but they're still really good and follow the story progression quite nicely. So I'll give it a low 8 tier, straight into the 8 heart event, and I really love this one. If I could, I'd stop here, and we all should. We all should stop here. It starts by entering the little coop that's a part of Marnie's ranch. We see Shane hugging his little chicken Charlie, and talking about how he's going to keep going down the right path with the help of all of his babies. He tells you that he wants to make a difference around the house, which includes leaving Jazz with something to do and cherish and grow after he moves out of the house. This is a super cute heart event and is another step in Shane's progress. Not only is he taking up a hobby to keep himself busy, he's thinking ahead. And that's really important because from the beginning of his story, he had no will to live. He could barely handle the present, let alone think about the future. Now here he is, curating something in preparation for a life beyond the present, which is just really nice to see. I know I give Shane a lot of shit because he's definitely not my go-to husband, but I have to admit that his story is written really well and is one of the few that has a true progression from start to finish, alongside a common theme across the board. With that being said, I'm giving out another S tier. For Shane's 10 heart event, you both go see a gridball game in Zuzu City. He'll thank you for sticking with him, amidst all of the struggles that he experienced. At the end of it, the tunnelers score, and in the excitement, Shane gives you a little smooch. There's not much to say about this one because it's pretty straightforward, and I have no business being at a gridball game, but it's still pretty cute. Going to a gridball game is definitely on brand for Shane, since he's definitely a gridball enjoyer, and it's nice to see him having a good time somewhere, especially somewhere where people normally drink a lot of alcohol. But again, there's not much to say. It's pretty straightforward, and it's also just not my favorite. It can get a high B tier. Shane's 14 heart event is sort of long-winded, but I can just explain the gist of it. You and Marnie catch Shane entering the saloon, so you decide to essentially stalk him for a couple of days, until you reach the final day, where you and a very angry Marnie decide to go in and confront him. But instead of finding him drinking, you find him in front of an arcade machine, drinking Joja Colas. Once you apologize, he tells you that he understands, because he hasn't always been the best person, but he's working towards a brighter future. He also reassures you that neither of you have to worry anymore. I think that final reassurance is cute and pretty nice to hear, but I just don't really like the process of this entire heart event. Like, why are we stalking him? We want to trust him and give him the means to be open and honest with you, but instead, we're following him. I know it's difficult to regain trust for a person like Shane, especially someone like Marnie, who's seen all of these sides of him, so it's really easy to have doubts. I just wish this event was different and maybe a little bit more personal between the two of you. It is kind of funny. I mean, like, you guys think that he's drowning himself in alcohol, but bro's just playing games and drinking Coke. So it's funny in that aspect, but I just still wish there was something more or some kind of activity between you and Shane. Also, we all know a few pieces of post-marriage dialogue from Shane ruined this heart event. But as I said with Sebastian, can of worms. We're not talking about it. Unfortunately, because of my own personal bias, I'm gonna have to give this a C tier.